Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeremy Solomon, and I will be your host for this evening. And isn't this evening going to be something? I am personally very excited for what we have planned for you. Over the past few weeks, we have been celebrating Teachers Month by organizing different webinars that are very beneficial to teachers, not only here, but across the world. 2 weeks ago, we organized a webinar on the national education policy where we had different people come and talk about different aspects of it. Last week, we had a webinar that talks about building of soft skills in teachers. And this week, we are going to be talking about continuous professional development. Before we go ahead, I just want to take the time to thank all of our attendees for taking the time out to be a part of our webinar. You mean a lot to us, and I know that you are going to benefit a lot from what we have to say a few moments from now. Since this is an online event, I would like to request you to bear with us in case there is any technical lag from our end. However, we do have a very good technical person in the back end, Anjum, to help us go past this. If in case there is still some sort of lag or anything of the sort, I request you to please leave the meeting and join once again, and perhaps then it would be solved. There won't be any lag, trust me. There hasn't been in the past, there won't be now. So we know that you're going to have a good experience with this. Also, for those of you all who wanted to join and be part of this but did not get a chance to register, we are streaming live right now on our Facebook page, that is Oasis International School, our Facebook page. We are streaming live on that right now. During the course of the webinar, we would like for it to be interactive, but we know that our attendees cannot come on and talk. However, we do have certain polls planned during the course of this discussion. And we would like for you all to participate in this poll so that we understand what you are thinking, what's going on in your mind, what your perspective on the issue is. But do keep in mind that since we may have a limited period of time to do this, to use the poll option and do it quite fast. Another thing is we are keeping the chat section open, and we are keeping the question and answer section open. Which means that you can tell us what you feel in the chat section. And if you have questions to ask, we request you to please type the questions in the Q&A section, as it becomes easier for us to choose the questions to put forth to any of the panelists, and we don't have to nitpick them from the chat section in the middle of all the chats. Another request would be, when you're asking questions, it would be nice if you could write specifically who you would like to answer that question. So without further ado, I would like to take the time to talk a little bit about our moderator for this evening. Can I ask Dr. Amber to please come on screen? With me on screen right now is Dr. Amber. Good evening, ma'am. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Jeremy. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
I trust you are having a fun Sunday, quiet if not.
Yeah, it's rainy and dull, so yes.
Yes,
Nice.
yes. Dr. Amber and I haven't worked extensively in the school, but we have worked together. And for the times we have worked together, I have not only had a lot of fun doing this, I have learned a lot. The students that were part of this has also learned a lot. And we have worked on outreach programs, going to different villages and doing things. But one thing that really stood out to me was the training that I was part of just before the lockdown could hit. So Dr. Amber, I know, is an amazing person. And not only that, she is a director of instruction on the board of trustees at Oasis International School, and is an active member of the strategic leadership team of the school, and is primarily involved in the capacity building and directs its continuous professional development program. I don't see a better person to take a webinar on this topic. There is a lot more I can say about Dr. Amber. But for the lack of time, I'm going to request Afifa to share more details on Dr. Amber on our chat so you can find out more about her. And we will be doing this for the rest of our panelists as well. And this is an amazing panel that we have. You can connect with them on LinkedIn or anything and find out more about them. And I'm personally looking forward to everything they have to say. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, how schools learn. Dr. Amber, you
Thank
can take
you.
over.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And salam, namaste, and a very happy afternoon to all you educators who have joined us on this webinar, How Schools Learn. Hope you enjoy the experience and the time you will spend with our panelists. This theme came from Peter Singh's famous book. I'm sure a lot of you would have, read or at least heard about it. Is Schools That Learn, a book that talks of the tools and methods schools can use to build the capacity to grow, change, and promote learning at all levels. But nurturing learning organizations is easier said than done. By itself, it is a complex, tricky task. Today, it seems even more complex, and no rewards for guessing why. As if the 21st century was not enough of a challenge with the absolutely bizarre technological advancements with AI, IoT, blockchain, and more, not leaving anything to be as it is. Everything is in a state of change. Schools, closely related to the societies they belong to, need to equip students for the changing times ahead. They have to explore alternate approaches of teaching the changing times. Today, the times demand thinking critically, to be aware and care about others and the environment, to empathize, to live together, to create, decide, and so much more. The survival skills have changed, and schools will have to change to learn to teach them. Much unlearning before learning. Change the what, the how of teaching, and that may not work for, and find more creative ways to do things. At the same time, at another level, to cope with the changing socio-political and economic scenario, schools also learn to change. They have to learn to change. They have to pick and choose what to adopt, what to drop, what to oppose, what to subvert, to observe, based on their values that they ascribe to. So the big dilemma constantly that mainstream schools face: should they fall for competition, efficiency, and the free market, or work on their true purpose to help students find meaning? Perhaps now it will be about the use of technology in the classroom. Must we allow Google to teach in our classroom? And perhaps the role of parents in our schools will look different too. Schools have to take hard decisions, learn to change and change to learn, all together, all the time, so that in this dynamic, connected, and disrupted world, students are able to find their own value and worth and contribution, so that they thrive and not just survive. But the good news is that we have a breed of people we call teachers, who we are celebrating this month, who are our most prized asset presently, who we call our professional capital, and who have a huge influence on what students learn. They, by their natural disposition, make a huge difference by being who they are or who they are not, by what they do and what they don't, and by what they know and what they don't. They definitely make an impact either way. So our agenda today is to share best practices and understand how some of the best educators can help organize schools to nurture the potential and capacity of this capital we still bank on. The questions we need to ask are: how are we supporting them to be more effective in their spaces, in making effective judgments within their work, judgments on how to deal with situations, on the quality of student work, on how to manage and lead individuals and teams, and how are we supporting them in working together and collaboratively creating a collegiate and supportive culture for them to work. Effective professional development then, besides training staff towards school goals and improving teaching and learning, also includes appropriate strategies of recruitment and retention, teacher well-being, and school improvement. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our very esteemed panelists to give us insights on how to create the right climate for teachers to do their knitting, that is their business of teaching and learning, and bring meaning to the lives of the students entrusted to them. Our panelists are people who we take inspiration from, have learned much from, and continue to do so. We have with us today Mr. Ronald Stone. Absolutely honored to have him with us. Is Ron on the screen? Yeah.
I'm trying.
Ron, hi. How are you?
Start video.
So,
Hi.
hi.
Good evening from Singapore.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, India.
Yeah. We are having a really dull day here, Ron. How is it there?
It's hot and sunny in Singapore. Well, it was before darkness came.
With your equatorial range, I think, coming in this time of the day. And Ron originates from Britain, but has been a resident in Southeast Asia for over 30 years now. His entire career still spent in education, leading four of the region's prestigious international schools: the British School Manila, the British International School Jakarta, Tanglein Trust School Singapore, and the Green School Bali. Ron did an amazing leadership workshop with Aisha and me in Singapore. Some amazing insights from revisiting our vision and mission. Ron also did our first teaching learning audit. I think that was our first exposure to what an audit looks like. And we had to write policies and, like really run around getting everything in place. Our founder principal, as you know, will remember all the, crazy chaos that we had to go through. But I'm sure it was an amazing experience for all of us, and it helped us get through our whole school audits now, which where we are certified now with the ISO 9001 certification. So everything started with you, Ron. Thank you so much, and so happy to have you joining us from Singapore.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have Maya here. Maya has been Maya. Are you there to on the screen now? Hi, Maya. Always a pleasure to see you. Can we hear you, Maya?
Yes, hi. Good evening, everybody. Yeah.
Hello, Maya. So Maya has been in the field of education for over 3 decades. Her professional experience includes specializing and implementing a wide range of school and teacher-related projects and services, including the Wipro Flying Thoughts in School, Schools Teacher Empowerment Project, Safe and Sensitive Schools, and Indian Social, and now recently in the development of the Indian Social and Emotional Learning Framework, the ISEL. So she's also accredited teacher trainer for Jenny Mosley Consultancies for training teachers in whole school circle time across India. Quality Circle Time is a much awaited class at Oasis, once a week, right from grade 1 to 12 at Oasis. Thanks to the training with Maya, our teachers have benefited much from the amazing conferences CTF has organized and other staff PV programs, including those in coaching, mentoring, and leadership. Oasis has also learned much from the safe and sensitive school audit and training that Maya conducted with us. Maya is very much part of Oasis learning. Thank you, Maya, for being with us today.
Pleasure being here.
Are you there? Colonel, is Colonel on the screen?
Sorry.
The Colonel has been at Indus for 5 years as head of human resources, and he presently is the head of operations at Bangalore International School. Colonel Isra is a family friend at Oasis. He has always been there to solve our HR issues and to celebrate with us at various events, religiously turning up for our sports days, graduations, and more. Chief guest sometimes, and sometimes substituting for one. But it's been always a pleasure having him around. Thank you so much, Colonel, for being here, and your good advice has always been valuable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, Trista is a young entrepreneur. Dr. Trista, are you on screen? Hi.
Thank you, Amber.
Hi. founder and managing director of ATS Schools, vice president of PMR Group of Institutions. Dr. Sista holds a doctorate in education from King's College London, master's degree from Sanford University School of Graduate Education, and a bachelor's degree from Singapore Management University. Her past research has focused on topics including educational equity, teacher motivation, educational policy, and curriculum construction. Wow, amazing. Her initiative to nurture design thinking in students perhaps is what brought us together. Oasis is a big fan of design thinking too. And now, so many years down, 20 years to be precise, we've begun to see design in our past journey itself. And that definitely says much of our passion to see design all around. So, right, Sista, is that design thinking? Thank you for being with us, Sista. So that was my part, introducing everyone here, our very esteemed panelists. And I now hand over to Ron for the keynote. Ron, are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Thank you.
I feel very humbled to sit amongst my colleagues here, my fellow panelists. And this is a great honor for me to do this. But when I saw the agenda, what was planned, I thought, my goodness, this is very dry and serious. So my role can be to bring a little levity to the situation and tell a little story as part of my own learning journey and development. So after 24 years of successful school leadership in 3 what had become highly reputable and prestigious international schools in Southeast Asia, I decided and announced that I'd be leaving. Enough. Time to do something different. And that was a huge leap to take. I was in the best job in the world, earning a good salary, great continued prospects. In each of those 3 schools, my brief on appointment had been grow the school enrollment, extend the age range, upgrade the facilities to world class, and I'd been successful on all those counts. So I knew what I could do, but I didn't know what else I could do. So I needed to find out before I was about to run out of life, essentially. So after I left the 3rd school, Tanglin Trust School, I was introduced to John and Cynthia Hardy, who were thinking about creating a new school in Bali, what became known as Green School. They'd seen Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth and were fired up to do something to save the world. They'd been successful in the jewelry business, so a school was going to be a totally new area for them. I was invited to meet them over lunch at their jewelry factory, where they sat every day with their 700 employees under the swaying palms in the jungle. And Cynthia said, come and sit next to me. Through lunch, she told me about their dream to create a bamboo school in the jungle, a school in which students would reconnect with nature, would study projects like climate change, and would find solutions to make our planet sustainable. And as she was talking, I held onto my seat, and I thought, oh my goodness. She then turned to me and said, and you can be our first director. Although tempted, I said, no, Cynthia, I'm done with leading schools. I need to discover what else I can do. And so she said, in that case, you can be our advisor. Fine, fine. And so on my regular visits to Bali, we would sit together on Sunday evenings after dinner and talk about creating Green School. Then I was invited to meet with the directors of Sampurna Foundation in Jakarta. The Sampurna family is one of the 4 tobacco giants in Indonesia. And the family had just sold its 4-generation business in the biggest deal in history to Philip Morris. it had used part of its proceeds to set up a family foundation to put back into Indonesia, and had chosen education as its mission. There were 400 people working in the foundation in the areas of access to and quality of education. And they spoke to me about leading a school quality improvement program in national education across the vast archipelago of Indonesia. My response was, I think you're talking to the wrong person. In case you hadn't noticed, I'm an old white colonial guy. I know nothing about national education in Indonesia, and my use of Bahasa Indonesia is sedikit saja. Their response was, perfect. I said, oh my goodness. Where would I start? I asked. We'll give you a team of 6 guys and an operating budget. And then? Go. Report your progress in 3 months' time. Oh my goodness. The team had already done some groundwork and had asked the Ministry of Education to identify a senior high school in each of the provinces that could benefit from and could become a star in a school quality improvement program. I had never even visited a national school, so that had to be my starting point. I chose to visit a senior high school in Surabaya, and after the principal had given me a tour, I asked if I could sit in a class and observe. He took me to a grade 11 physics class, where there were 57 students in the class, all facing the teacher who was reading from a textbook. And the students were diligently taking notes as the teacher talked. I found out later that the teacher was an English teacher. Teachers were assigned to classes where needed rather than according to their disciplines. And I found out later that students were not allowed to ask questions because the teacher was unlikely to be able to answer them. My double goodness. But I rationalized this was my starting point, that I had to take my prior learning from successful international high achieving schools and throw that out of the window and start with the reality of this. And my thinking was that if our quality improvement program could make a difference in which teachers like this would have the confidence to say to students, you may ask questions. I may not know the answers, but together we could find out. That would be making a difference.
Wow.
So that was the start. That was the start. Over 2 years, I built the team to 30 fresh young graduates to work with me, to be assigned as program officers to schools, and for us to do the selection of schools. Sure, the ministry could propose 3 schools for us to look at, but then the principal and teachers would have to fight it out and convince me that they wanted to join the program. And in my spare time, I was advising the Hardys on the creation of Green School. When Green School opened in 2008, it was to a huge fanfare and attracted the world's attention, but very quickly went into a downward spin. When you've been on such a high, there's only one direction to go, and it went. It faced failure within months of opening, and the Hardys asked if I would leave Sampurna Foundation in order to save Green School from going under. And since Green School, in my view, had the potential to be the #1 in the world, I had no choice. So that is when the next chapter of my learning begins. But that's another keynote address. I hope you found that interesting and useful.
Wow. Whoa.
Thank you.
But did you leave then? No?
Yes, I left Sampurna Foundation on good grounds and took up leadership of Green School on the 1st of December 2008. And on my first day at Green School, CNN was on site to make its documentary. My first day.
Thank you for that. That was a lot of learning, a
Good.
lot of yeah. It's leadership at the topmost level, I would say. Thank you so much, Ron. We'll move on to the polling. Let's involve the audience a little bit, and let's put on the first poll for the audience to answer. Jeremy or Anjum, will you be doing that? Okay, there you go. Can we all see it? Anyone can teach. It's about having a passion for it. So we would love to know from our audience how many of you agree and how many of you disagree. A very common cliche. Anyone can teach.
A note to the audience. Do keep in mind that we will not leave the poll on for very long, probably just for 20 to 30 seconds, as we would like to keep a pace and move ahead with the webinar as well. So if you could be kind enough to, there we are, and we're out with the results as well.
There you go. So we have 82%. Whoa, 82% who think anyone can teach if you have the passion for it, right? And there are 18% who think that no, right? It's an amazing way to go ahead with this webinar, because yes, we have this feeling that teaching is anyone's job. Anybody can just go into the classroom and start teaching, but it definitely requires more than passion to be a teacher, right? And I think Colonel Richard will help us with his little bit of a chat. In the Indian scenario, yes, anyone can teach. Mental model exists, and that's what we just saw in the poll. And very often we have people from various fields, for many reasons, trying their hand at teaching. Some really do well. In countries in the UK, there are specific laws for newly qualified teachers: induction, entitlements, reduced classes, more support, supervision, mentoring, and tutoring. But here, with no governing body, how can schools make sure that the newly qualified, passionate teachers enjoy a pleasant work experience? I'm sure there'll be strategies that schools have to bring in to make sure that these teachers continue and want to stay and have a good time teaching, right? So we would like to hear from you about that, and also a little bit about how is it when there are new teachers who join in, who bring in new meaning to the school, and add to the vision or whatever is of the school that exists. How can schools make sure that the climate remains collegial with the new staff and the old staff, right? And teachers continue to be focused on student learning rather than getting into corrosive and destructive politics. So that's going to be your part now, Colonel Richard. Can we hear from you?
Thank you, Dr. Amber. After hearing Ron, I'm the least qualified person to talk about teacher thing. But what I learned over the last few years is that when you get a teacher on board, it is important that you make that teacher feel comfortable in the school environment. In a big school, teachers are running around trying to figure out things if you do not give them a mentor. And the mentor must be someone who is empathetic, is guiding, is showing a way for them to succeed. In most cases, I feel teachers fail because we haven't guided them at the right time. And I have always emphasized that no teacher is bad. If she is guided at the right time, she will grow, or he will grow. When you select a teacher, it is important to see that not only do they have academic excellence, but they have a commitment to the organization. Teachers who jump schools do not commit to the school. So what you really want to, when you hire a teacher, is to see the commitment to the organization. And once they are on board, it is for us to ensure that they succeed and continue to stay in the organization. There are going to be pinpricks, and those pinpricks have to be addressed immediately. There are teacher politics that run in almost all schools, and that has to be stopped at the right time. Gossiping is good to take out the steam, but malicious gossiping should not be allowed in an organization. When you come together as colleagues, the best thing to do is to get a bonding that occurs. Now, while bonding is one important part of it, it is also, you keep observing the teacher, how she interacts with the students and with colleagues. And there should be interventions at the right time if a teacher is not stepping up to the mark. Or if a teacher is good, they should be praised in public. But when they are not performing, you need to bring them aside and question them as to what is the problem. Ask them what is the problem and address those problems. In 90% of those issues, you will find that they have not been supported by someone in the school. The moment you provide those support to the teacher becomes committed to the organization and will serve the organization for a long time. And that brings a culture of collegiality in the organization. Training is another thing. Teachers, you can only spend certain amount of money on training. And the less you spend on training of the teachers, the less you are educating them to prove themselves in the organization. And especially with international schools, training is very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Colonel. That was really nice. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So we'll wait for that. But definitely you have some great strategies going there. I think the mentoring that you said you have, do you have like a complete mentor-mentee system, or is it just for the new teachers?
Right now we have only for the new teachers.
Okay. Do you have one like a appointed mentor, who does all the new teachers, or is it dependent on the subject?
It's on the subject. The mentor is nominated, but the HR or I take on the role of a mentor outside in case they need some help and they're not getting through. I step in. Right. The doors must open for the teacher to perform. When teachers find doors shut and they don't know where to go, there should be a one point of contact in the organization which opens those doors for them and says, here, now go. This is the door that you need to go to.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions coming in for you, Colonel.
Yeah.
That's a hot topic with teachers, I'm sure. All right. Let's go into the next poll. Anjum, if you can put that up for us. That's very close to what. Yes, Jaren.
Yeah, just before we do that, just want to make an announcement as a reminder. The next poll is currently on your screen. I thank you all for giving us your opinion, yes and no, for the previous poll. Do that as well. But I also want to say that the chat is open. We'd like to know what you think. You can type out your opinions directly on the chat. There's one that's come up, so maybe Dr. Amber can look at that as well. And our panel will also be taking questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask specifically to anyone as well, do feel free to use our Q&A section that is open as well. So you can put in your questions over there. We're looking forward to them. So once again, Anju ma'am, if you could put up the poll on screen, we can have our attendees vote on what they want to choose.
Teachers need to be trained to nurture social and emotional skills in their learners. Do we think that teachers have to have it in them, or do we think that they too need support and training to be able to nurture the same skills in the learners? Let's see how many agree and disagree. It's very open-ended. There is no right and wrong to our polling question. So feel free to answer whatever you think. Wow, look at that. We all feel that teachers need to be trained, and thankfully we had at Oasis, we had on, what was that? Gleek had a session, they had what do you call, a training for the teachers on social emotional, the human skills, which they called it, and it was very, very well received. I'm sure most teachers would welcome support like this. So now here's to you, Maya, your question. Progressive schools have been struggling to address social and emotional aspects of student learning, and the need was never as important as it is today in the face of the pandemic. Maya's work, I-Self framework, is going to prove to be a savior in many ways. Let's hear from Maya on the importance of critical thinking using the I-Self framework. So that's Maya's presentation. Maya?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Amber. So I'm just going to, I'm sorry I'm using a PowerPoint. I don't have much time, but I just thought I needed to show you some visuals while I'm talking about our work. Since the topic of the webinar is how schools learn, the proposition I'm making is that schools will learn only if we look at, schools will learn only through a focus on authenticity, critical thinking, and social emotional learning. Let's unpack these terms. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, sure.
Okay. What do we mean by authenticity, critical thinking, and social emotional learning? And I'm particularly emphasizing on the word authenticity because otherwise, as a country, we are very good at using a lot of buzzwords. But when it comes to actually acting and working and implementing those approaches, those good practices, we fall short. So authenticity, to quote the well-known Simon Sinek, authenticity is when you say and do things you actually believe. Now that's a big, it seems a simple enough statement, but it's a tall order because it's very important for us to be absolutely clear about who we are, what we want to be, and how we want to actually demonstrate who we are through all our actions. So it's about actions speak louder than words. So whatever we say has to stem from what we believe. We can't be believing something and saying something else and doing something else. So that's one important thing. If we've got to learn as schools and as institutions, we have to be absolutely authentic. The other is about critical thinking. This is a word that's been figured several times in our new education policy of 2020. If you were to look at critical thinking, it's the objective analysis of facts to arrive at a judgment or decision. It requires critical cognitive skills like analysis, interpretation, inference, explanation, self-regulation, open-mindedness, and problem solving. These are very important skills, and we won't be able to use these skills and demonstrate these skills in an inauthentic environment. And then lastly, let's look at SEL, popularly called SEL, but social emotional learning, which is something particularly close to my heart because that's been part of our enduring work at the Teacher Foundation. Social emotional learning is defined as the process of acquiring a set of social and emotional skills such as self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. But you don't acquire these skills just about anyhow. It has to happen in a safe, supportive environment that encourages social, emotional, and cognitive development with, again, the word authentic, with authentic opportunities for practicing these skills. Now, it's very important, therefore, we cannot develop these very critical human skills of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and decision-making. People call them life skills. You could call them 21st century skills, but they're actually social emotional skills, unless you have a safe, supportive environment. I want to do a quick quote from the National Education Policy. To quote, NEP is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capacities such as the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy, and higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving, which I just talked to you about, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Now, this is fair and square mentioned in the new education policy, but between policy and actual practice, as they say, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip, and that's what I would be worried about while we actually, implement the policy in the next 10, 12, 15 years, and so on. My proposition is that unless we have social emotional learning equals authenticity and critical thinking. You cannot teach authenticity unless you begin with oneself. I love to use the quote, Zoe Wilde's quote from the Institute of Humane Education: the world becomes what we teach. And I usually extend that quote by saying, the world will not become what we don't teach. And we need to see, what do we not teach? What do we not give enough time on? I think we all know SEL is important. We all know that children's human capabilities are important, but we keep saying we don't have time. Now, to examine the questions posed to me on this webinar, Amber has posed, 21st century skills, pandemic, social emotional learning, are our schools ready? And the second question, what is the impact of formal teacher training programs on teacher instructions, and how do we know? So let me look at the first point. Are our schools ready for 21st century expectations, pandemic, and social emotional needs? I don't have time, so I'm just going to say it very quickly. It's important for us to, our schools will be ready if we look at it from an authentic lens. Every school management, every principal, every teacher needs to be looking at children's capabilities, both cognitive and SEL capabilities, through the lens of authenticity, doing it for the right reasons. Schools often know what needs to be done. They even know how it needs to be done. But where we fall short is not doing it on a regular basis, not doing it with the immense capability that and skills that one needs to do it in. I like to use this quote, Will Durant, who's an American philosopher: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. And a lot of times teachers tell me in my decades of work with teachers that, no, but we do it sometimes. Today we didn't do it, but we often do it, or sometimes we do it, or when we have time, we do it. But that's not the point. The point is that we need to be doing it day in and day out, because that's the right thing to do. As Will Durant said, excellence is not an act, but a habit. So therefore, what can schools and teachers do? We need to be experiencing teachers themselves through effective authentic professional development opportunities. They need to experience authentic learning experiences themselves. They need to have skills for critical thinking. A lot of times we ourselves, as a teaching community, we ourselves do not have the analytical skills, the problem solving skills, the decision-making skills that are required of 21st century teachers. And last of all, we need to have the requisite social emotional learning competencies. And for that, and we're happy to give it for free, we have a lovely booklet of wonderful activities and ideas to foster teacher well-being, which we call Happy Teachers for Happy Schools. So if you want to, do let us know through our website. We also conducted original research across a 7-year time frame, which is a long time, and I'm not going to go into the research right now, to look at SEL for Indian schools. And based on our research findings, we found that when we talk to teachers across the country, students from across the country, government schools, private schools, urban schools, rural schools, we saw that there were clear differences. There wasn't big differences between urban schools, by the way, between private schools and government schools, incidentally. But we saw clear differences between what students feel about themselves and what teachers feel about students. So which means that teachers need to be having far more dialogues with students. The others, we saw clear differences in terms of the feelings about school and themselves amongst boys and girls. And lastly, we found that both teachers and students consider academic success to be the most important aspect of school. Now, this is a telling point. If you were to look at it in terms of the social emotional learning competencies, this is how teachers prioritized. The top 3 priorities for teachers were these skills for their students, and top 3 competencies that students had prioritized for themselves were this. For teachers, it was student self-management and decision-making and relationship management. For students who are trying to cope with relationships, etc., for them, relationship management was the top. But as you can see, social awareness and self-awareness were 4th and 5th in priority. We didn't say they're not important, but they were less. And most importantly, self-awareness. Both our teachers and students did not think their own personal awareness about who they are, their own sense of unique personal identity, that was not given priority. So that was telling. So based on that, we've developed ISELF, the Indian Social Emotional Learning Framework, with clear age bands. And each competency has clear standards, learning standards, 2 to 3 learning standards. And each learning standard has clear age-banded learning outcomes, which means that a teacher who's teaching grade 2 or grade 3 will know clearly what are the learning outcomes that I need to be fostering in children for self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, social awareness and decision-making. Similarly, a teacher who's teaching 14, 15-year-olds or 16, 18-year-olds. And incidentally, this is available to freely download and look at from our website, along with an accompanying teacher's handbook. So, but of course, we would recommend that you get an orientation on how to decipher and how to make use of it, but otherwise it's freely downloadable. So coming to the second question that Amber posed to me, what's the impact of formal teacher training programs on teacher instructions? How do we know? I would say it's, what's the impact of formal teacher training program? It could be nothing or it's everything. Depends on how we do it, depends on the opportunities that the teacher has in making use of the skills. I want to share with you this. How do we know? This is research from a while ago, 2002, but it's been backed up in 2008 and 2011 also, Joyce and Showers. And they say that unless we look at professional development and ongoing coaching and support, we are not going to have teachers who actually consistently do it in their regular practice. Use their learnings from their professional development workshops in their classrooms on a daily basis. You could see it is only through ongoing survey. If it's just theoretical presentation lecture, they're not going to use it at all. It's 0% if you look at it. If it's presenter modeling, if I'm the facilitator and I'm showing something, about 30% of the learners will know how to do it. 20% will actually be able to do it, but again, 0% will consistently do it in daily practice. But it's only through ongoing coaching that they will be 95% of the learners, that's the teachers, will be able to do it and know how to do it, will be able to do it, and consistently use it in their daily practice. And to end, I just want to end with this quote: when children feel well, they will respond better, respond and learn better. And I would say the same thing for teachers. When teachers feel well, they will respond and learn better. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Maya. We have so much to learn from you. Our PDQ Center is just 5 years, and you've got all the experience that we can learn from. It's but definitely, I would think that, don't you think that the teacher archetype that is there in the Indian scenario, in the Indian context, does not that play an impact on the impact of the PB? Doesn't that, and even the managerial agenda of the schools as to what they expect, does that also?
I know, so that's why I was talking about the authenticity part of it, Amber, that I think it is important for school managements to be authentic in their in why they are doing professional development. What is the purpose? What do they want to get out of it? How are they going to how are they going to help teachers implement it in actual daily practice? Not just do it as it shouldn't be just another tick box. I think that's the important thing.
That's what makes a big difference, because I too evaluated the PDQs that we were doing, and I found that out of the 10 teachers that I studied, 6 showed, continuing practice, and kind of there was an impact. But there were a few who lost everything, and there were a lot of reasons. There were a lot.
And those teachers need coaching. Those teachers need more coaching and support.
More support, right?
Exactly.
It's very important. Thank you so much, Maya.
May I just add something there?
Sure.
Maya, that was excellent. I think that's very, very interesting. I was very pleased to see, or I'll be pleased to look at more at happy teachers for happy schools.
Sure. I'll reach out to you for that.
That would be great. I was participating in an international schools fair last weekend, and people new to Singapore were choosing their school. As the veteran person there, I was approached by a number of parents who said, "What should we look for when we're looking for a school?" And I said, well, my #1 priority would be happy students, happy children, because if they're happy, they're going to be learning. And we often forget what's the point of our improvement as teachers, and it's all about improving the learning opportunities for children and making them comfortable and making them want to come to school inspired and be happy.
Exactly. Absolutely
right. #1, hasn't it? #1.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for sharing. Very interesting.
It's one of the ways to evaluate schools, I think. There was a happiness indicator, I think. To understand whether the school is truly doing its business and missing what we call. Thank you so much, Maya and Ron, for adding your comments. We look at the next poll before we invite Dr. Krista. Anju, yes, so that's the one. A top-down approach to change management is short-lived. So again, it's an open-ended question. When does top-down and when does bottom-up work? So let's see what our audience has to say. I hope they're alive and awake. There we go. What does it say? Krista is a management student, right? So that's the question. Oh, it's 74 and 26. 74 agree that a top-down approach is short-lived. So people do believe that change has to come from the bottom-up method. Most of them do believe that. So leaders of dynamic, innovative schools require exceptional organizational, political, and interpersonal skills. That's Krista's question. So they tend to hire creative, imaginative people who bring in the changes that schools need to go on innovating and learning. What we want to hear from Sister today is how she works with her staff to sustain the AKIA brand and the culture to go with it, and how important the staff buy-in was. What we were talking about, the bottom-up approach for her vision to be able to kind of continue and bring in research-based innovations to Indian schools, which is her aim when she came back from her studies abroad. So how do you empower, delegate, and build your professional capital, especially in the present scenario with a shift to the online platform? So, Sister, let's hear from you now.
Thank you, Amber. AK Schools was founded in 2010, and really, I think it's a team of exceptional educators, and the leadership team really believes in professional development and putting teachers learning at the very forefront. And it has been a journey at an organization level to build a professional development culture and innovative mindset. And personally, for me, I've been very passionate about society viewing teaching as a profession. And my research has been about teacher motivation, teacher status. And one of the key things that comes um, out of this is to view teaching as a profession, like you would as a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, is this idea of professional knowledge. And that teaching also has a body of knowledge that is continuously growing, and teachers have a grip on this professional body of knowledge and they're learning from it. So in our journey and as a team, as we've built AKIA forward, we have really tried to really emphasize teacher professional growth and teacher growth in the system as a very key component, and that really emphasizes the success of our students. We do that by guiding, mentoring, and supporting our teachers. And because of a lack of time, I've just listed 7 initiatives that we do as an organization. And I'll talk a little bit about the challenges in implementing something like that. But the 7 key initiatives I wanted to talk about is, first, continuous professional development, whether it be onboarding our teachers, ongoing professional development. We have an in-house team that does our PD. We also do self-paced online coursework, and we also end the year with a learning festival where teachers get to share their learnings and really showcase what they've done for the year. So continuously engaging with teachers and telling them that we care about their growth, their professional journey, and their expanding of their professional knowledge as they become professionals and be part of this very dynamic profession itself. Continuous PD is the first. Second is we do something called goal setting. Every teacher has agency and has to understand where they are coming from and where they would like to go. And they do this with their school leader. And we want teachers to think about their profession and their journey as something that they have agency over. And we want them to really think about and reflect on where and how they can get better. The third thing that we do is coaching. We've spent the past 4 years putting a system and a coaching platform in place. We believe that teaching is a very lonely profession. Teachers are in their classroom, they're being watched by children, and they don't get feedback as they should, and continuously being coached on what they can do better. So our platform timestamps teachers' work, our leadership team, our curriculum team sit in and look at what's happening in the learning. How is the teacher really implementing a lesson? And talk to the teacher about what they observe. And this is a very collaborative process, and we're really looking for learning. And there is a pre-observation, a meeting that the leadership and the teacher actually have. Then there's the observation, and there's a post-observation meeting. And this is something that it allows teachers to grow and understand where they're coming from and what they can do better. And I think technology has really helped us drive a very data-driven approach to looking at the teaching practice and be able to document teacher work. The fourth is really about peer learning and buddy support. Newcomers are supported when they're allowed to watch a teacher and see how her classes run. And they can share best practices. The fifth is really talking about leadership and coordinator training. unless our leadership team understands the importance of PD, understands where we're headed, why we're headed in that direction, what we have to teach, when we have to teach it, how we have to teach it, how do we assess it. All of these are very, very dynamic and very complicated aspects. So our leadership team needs to be able to be in touch and be learning continuously so they can guide their school teams properly. The sixth is teacher wellness initiatives. I think teacher well-being is a very, very important component, and that's something that we drive um, very, very strongly. And we believe that if teachers are going to be well and feeling good about themselves, then they are going to be doing the best for their students. And it's nice to follow up after Maya and everything that she talked about, because really teachers being happy and teachers being feeling safe is very important. So we run teacher wellness initiatives, and through the pandemic we've run 30-day wellness programs, and it's gone really well. And last but not the least is we're using technology. We're using a platform like Slack to really connect our teachers. All 400 of our teachers and leadership community is come together. Barriers between our different schools have really come down. We feel like one big family, and they can get to learn from each other. Peer learning is very strong, and platforms like this really help us understand and learn from each other. And all of these initiatives have, our emphasis is that teacher learning, teacher support, teacher wellness, and teacher growth is just as important as student wellness and student growth and student learning. And I think the key principles that we really take away from that is agency for teachers to be able to, have agency over their journey. Um, as an organization, to prioritize that this is important. We care about our teachers because we care about our students, and we will prioritize something like this, professional growth and professional development of teachers. And also, I think the last but not least is never losing sight that building an organization and creating a culture focused on professional development and innovation is really a journey. We have to get better and better every time. And we're dealing with people, and people are very, very dynamic. Students are dynamic, teachers are dynamic, parents are dynamic. And when we're working with such a complex environment, I think it's to understand that we have to just get better and better, and uh, be agile enough to innovate on what's facing us at the moment. Just like the pandemic has put us into a different spin, but it's really a journey. And as an organization, just staying true to that intention is what's very important to us. I want to just close by saying that I think really the work the teachers do is so complex, and this profession is really needs much more appreciation from society and from everybody understanding what teachers do. And I think it begins by teachers themselves understanding and internalizing the work that they do. And leadership and school organizations have the responsibility to ensure that the causes and conditions are enabled for great PD in schools.
Wow.
Thank you, Amber.
That's a great leader talking. Really amazing. I'm sure you see a lot of authenticity in what you're saying, using Maya's term about leadership and schools being authentic in what they do. Your words definitely resound, reflect your authenticity. I'm sure your schools must be doing great, and there's a lot of learning for Oasis also from it. I feel that the pandemic has brought us, there are a lot of pluses in the pandemic, and it has brought us together as a community. Like the way you said, your schools all feel like one family. There are some things which have really, yeah. Thank you, Trishta. And now we go back to Ronald for his little bit on the first one, but we have a poll again. Yeah, Anjum, can you send us? Staff professional development needs to be timetabled in the school hours to be effective. Maybe Trishta can answer how much time is given to for PD in her school.
I cannot put a number to it.
Yeah.
Clock about 70. We're trying to clock about 70 hours in a year.
70 hours per teacher?
per teacher.
You do that. Oh, okay, that's amazing. That's good. Even the NEP is, I think, allocating 50 hours, so pretty close. Nice. Let's see what our audience has to say. Yes, timetables in the school hours, and I think that's the biggest complaint. Like, I won't say complaint, but grievance from the teachers. They all believe in it. They all really want to develop, but it's the time, that is a factor. And again, if leadership is authentic and they believe in PD, I'm sure they'll make the time for it. So thank you. I think this poll really says a lot, and it's the ball is in the court of the management to actually make time for them. So yeah, here we go. The question to Ronald now. Your workshop, of course, is yet on our. It's very fresh in our minds as to what you did with us, Ron, when we came to Singapore. And I remember we started with getting the right people on the bus. So for today, if you could tell us about how to keep those people on the bus with us, right, and not let them move on, because we do see a lot of teacher, what do you call it, hopping. The one thing we all know, but as educators, that what keeps us going is the challenge and the growth opportunities that the workplace can provide. So from your immense leadership training, if you could share how can leaders inspire, motivate, and influence and create opportunities in their organizations to grow leaders and empower, share vision, and distribute leadership. So we would love to hear from you. What are the good practices of nurturing school capacity through innovative strategies, collaboration, reflection, inquiry, and I'm sure you'll have a lot more to give us.
There's a lot there in a few minutes that is remaining. But if I may just comment on that professional development being timetabled or not, I think it's about finding a balance, isn't it? If we threw everything out of the window and only had professional development during school time, then no learning would be taking place for the students. Right. So, and if on the other end of the extreme, there's no professional development in school time, then you can't fit in everything you want to do to make the students' learning more effective. So it's about finding a balance.
Right.
And providing those professional development opportunities that teachers really, really want. Because if they want it, they will find the time, they will make the time to participate in that development. But again, the questions that you've posed to me, I was reflecting, what's the most effective way that I have found in school development training and building capacity is to involve all teachers in school development planning, taking the strategic plan, which has to be built from the ground upwards anyway, and then creating teams from that strategic plan who will take aspects of it and issues within it to push and pull and tease and squeeze and come out with recommendations, so that they're participating in not only that process, but in an outcome which will mean something to the school and take the school forward. They will learn from each other in that process. That's the collaboration, the reflective, and the inquiry. And I think we all know that teachers learn better from each other than they do from the top, but the direction needs to come from the top. We need to be the ones setting all this up to make it happen, and then putting all the lubricants in there to make it work. And we will see leaders growing out of that process, in my experience. And then again, as leaders, we have to identify the opportunities to help those individuals grow even further. So it's a continuous process. It rounds back on itself. And but the most important thing is to get the teachers inspired to want to participate and learn, so that students' learning becomes more effective and students are happy in their learning.
Thank you so much, Ron. That was a good, I think, finish to the first round, where we got a lot out of it in terms of what exactly the peer learning and the inspiration and the authenticity that is required from the leadership for the teachers to actually take on and even go beyond their working hours to want to learn and grow. So that is about the first round. We have a few questions now for all of you. Any of the
Sorry,
participants?
Amber,
Yes,
this is
yes,
Maya.
yes,
I just want to respond to what Ron said, and I agree with him, because I think the poll said that it should all professional development should be in the school hours. We can't have teachers working the same number of hours as children. We have to have teachers working more hours or more days in a school year than children, because all the professional development cannot happen when schools are functioning
Exactly.
for the children. So I think we have to get out of our heads this notion that I can only do it till about 3 o'clock or 3:30 and not beyond that, or only between Monday to Friday and not maybe on a weekend or during summer break. So I think I just want to reiterate what Ron said.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But it's up to the management to kind of inspire them, to want to learn more, and probably incentives can work. So actually, that's one of the questions that I had in mind. And again, any of the panelists can answer. What strategies can schools adopt to create time for staff development? Is there like something that schools can do? If there's some schools talk about teach less, teach better kind of a policy. So, maybe reduce some teaching, time with students and make time for PD. Would that work?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, Colonel.
May I respond?
What I
Sorry,
found is,
okay.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let Colonel talk, please.
What I found is, as Maya said, there are very few teachers who would like to stretch themselves beyond 3:30 in the evening when the school hours go off. But what I find is that you do professional development before the beginning of the academic year, and during the breaks, say a day or two. When you instead of calling it timetabling it, put it onto the calendar that these days are the ones that are going to spend for professional development. Then the teachers are quite receptive to it. They don't mind coming a couple of days earlier to the school academic year and going through your professional development. But most of them would like to get back to in the evenings home because they have to prepare for the next day.
Right. But are these days, of PD enough? And do they really have an impact? Don't we require, the others, like what you said, the coaching and, support that teachers need to actually embed the learning that is given in those 2 days. So that's when the time factor comes in for the teachers. Maya, you wanted to say something too. Maya?
I think what Colonel is trying to sort of refer to it. I think one has to timetable it, and if teachers are told well in advance and it becomes a culture of the school, I don't think teachers object. The problem is that it is often not the culture in most schools. And it's just given as a stopgap thing, okay, we'll do 1 day of training here and 2 days of training there and so on. But if it becomes a culture that there are certain number of days which you have to, Trishna talked about 70 hours, the NEP talks about 50 hours of professional development. If that becomes a culture, I think it's a good thing. It gets embedded that this is part of my job. It's not that I'm doing this extra and I'm working too hard for it. It is part of my job in order to improve my own professional practice. If that gets embedded as part of the school culture, I think it will work well.
Right, very true. Yeah, I think, yeah.
I think it also teachers do want to learn, and they do want to get better, and they do want to grow in their paths. And what we've seen is that if we set the bare minimum, say if we say 70 hours, but we encourage teachers to go above and beyond. We've seen teachers do come back with more than what we have asked. For example, we asked teachers to do self-paced courses. We've come back with teachers doing 7 courses, 4 courses on their own, online coursework. So teachers,
exactly. I think it's the flexibility and, of the course that is really important. How you, if they are very rigid structures, then it becomes harder. But if you give them a self-paced course, I think it really works very well. That's very true. There is another question that is there, which I think all of us can take. We said time, okay, let's look at the first one. There is much consensus that teaching quality matters, but there is little consensus yet. Takes time. Do we agree? And what are the implications of that? Do we agree that teaching quality, yes, we all agree that it matters, but what exactly is high quality teaching? Is there a consensus on that? And if not, then what are the implications of having different views on what makes good teaching? Do we want to answer that?
I can answer that.
Yeah, sure.
I think as a individual school will need to define this, because it's really unfair to expect a teacher to hit a benchmark that has not been clearly laid out, or a goalpost that hasn't been laid out. So really
unfair, yeah, right.
Really define what is good teaching practice. Laying out the sandbox will be very important, and I don't think there is one way. It depends on the school culture, school curriculum, school assessment pattern, and instructional methodology, but really defining it for their teachers will be very important.
Right. Correct. And what does it impact ultimately? What happens when it is not very clearly laid out? There is what you said, teachers feel it's unfair. It's unfair for them because the excellent teachers are not probably recognized, and the poor performance goes unnoticed too, right? So there's a good chance that there is. Tell me.
Dr. Amber, if I could just interject a few things I would like to say. I just want to say that we have been getting a lot of comments and questions from our Facebook chat as well.
So we can take them on now.
Right now, more than questions, there is a comment that was made, and perhaps you can talk about that a little bit as well. Arban Shahid says every profession requires a teacher. No wonder teaching is the best profession. And if you are striving to level up that profession, exclamation mark. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this name correctly, but Samshobha Singh says, I heard from a friend who is a teacher at Oasis International School that they have many training programs which has helped her to improve her skills. All 7 key steps explained by Miss Trishta is used at Oasis. So perhaps it's all interconnected and everything. So perhaps we can talk about this a little more and address our Facebook viewers as well. And also keep in mind that we have overshot the time limit we have put on our poster, but I guess we can continue till questions are answered.
Okay, so Jeremy, if you can, I cannot see the question. Can you tell us what are the questions that are there? specifically, and then
Right.
maybe we can get our teacher guest, you know, to kind of give us
Yeah,
her
I'm
views.
just sending it to you, ma'am. So
Okay.
you can look on your.
Okay. All right. All right. Here you are. Okay, Jenny. Okay. From Shavana. I agree work ethics are important and also leadership should be unbiased and fair. That was Shavana's thing, and I think we did discuss about you know, the role of leadership in PD. Jenny says that my question is to Maya. You said teachers need to experience authentic learning opportunities. Please, can you throw some more light on it?
Yeah, actually, Amba, I actually already responded to her, but in case
Okay, you did.
for the,
Okay,
yeah, I
okay, you did.
answered her question. But authentic learning opportunities are opportunities which are providing just-in-time opportunities. Where if a teacher is struggling with classroom management, provide opportunities for them to learn about classroom management, practice it, and somebody is coaching and mentoring the teacher. So because teachers need to function in the here and now, and teachers need to know how to handle possible challenges. So we can't be talking about constructivism as a learning theory when the teacher doesn't know how it actually has to be, you know, translated into actual practice in the classroom. So I think it's about helping the teacher function more effectively in the classroom. That was my response to Jenny.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the, I think, the disconnect between theory and practice. Like, you know, they know a lot of theory, but they really don't see how they can, you know, showcase it or see its impact in the classroom. Yes, that's the question which Jeremy just told me about. As that, when she start, like I did definitely connect with sister when she spoke about the 7 steps that she uses. Yes, Oasis is very close to that, but we do also have a CPD which we have just started in the, you know, kind of working on, and one of the reasons why we did this webinar was to understand it and explore it better. It's very much in its initial stage, but yes, we have put it down with a mentor-mentee program, with evaluation, evaluation for developmental purposes rather than judgmental. So our appraisal is very closely linked to you know, the mentor reporting rather than, you know, a one-time checklist kind of an evaluation. So that seems to be going well with the teachers, and they're happier this way rather than, you know, at the end of the year, you know, somebody walking in and just giving them a, you know, an unfair report of what their teaching is about. So yes, we are doing a lot in that field too. One more question for all the panelists before we invite Priya, one of our candidates, PDQ candidates, to just come and tell us what she felt about the webinar today and a little bit about the impact of PDQ on, you know, her career. Okay, we'll take one more question. Maybe what do you think is missing in our national state teacher education qualifications? What needs to be there in the NEP regarding teacher education to raise standards of teaching learning in the country? I think we should do this one. So anyone would like to talk about it? I'm sure Ron can't do this. But
I'm happy to respond, Amber.
Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah.
I think one important thing that is possibly missing in our new education policies, you know, has actually listed out a lot of good initiatives on good aspirations. The aspirations, because until it's actually implemented in all our schools, particularly the public school system, the government school system, it's just you know, a pipe dream.
It's just a policy. Yes.
Yeah, it's just a pipe dream in a sense. I think what's missing is, I think the fact that it's, you know, I've always been a big advocate of, and I keep saying it in various public forums and conferences and all that, we have to, India is too large a country to have only one or two or three routes to professional development. We have to have multiple routes for professional development. Somebody in their 40s and 50s may suddenly want to start teaching young children. Why is it that we can't allow them to become achieve qualified teacher status? So there has to be opportunities for people to be providing, I mean, Teacher Foundation offers so many professional development programs. Oasis, you've been doing that for a few years also. And if if anybody undertakes any professional development, but then clears maybe a TET exam, then it should be, you should be eligible to get a qualified teacher status, rather than just going through the 4 years of B.Ed after school, or 2 years of B.Ed after, after graduation. Those are very limited routes, because people do not decide at 18 or 22 or 23 to become a teacher. You can decide at 35 or 45 and so on. So
which is the trend nowadays, that
exactly.
They after engineering they suddenly want to try teaching, and there is no opportunity for them in the Indian kind of education program, so they have to take on others. And I think they make good teachers too after they get that little bit of qualifications from centers like yours and the Cambridge PDQs. So coming to that, we'll quickly call in Priya. Priya is a candidate, she's been a teacher for 9 years and then moved into curriculum development and is now the principal of an ICSE school. She has done her B.Ed, which we were just talking about, and is presently working on the 3rd module of our Cambridge Diploma in Teaching and Learning at the PDQ Center. So a couple of questions for Priya is that what most, Anju, can you get Priya in too?
Yeah, I'm here, Dr. Amber.
Hey, hi Priya, how are you?
Hi. I'm absolutely fine. How are you? I'm feeling actually privileged to be amidst such eminent educationists today.
It's nice.
Really wonderful to be part of it.
It'll be nice to hear from you, Priya. What motivated you to take on a professional development program? And it's nice that Maya was just talking about it.
Yeah.
And what changed for you? And finally, how beneficial was today's webinar for you?
Oh yeah, there's just lots to take back from the webinar, which I'll definitely say. I'm just resonating with whatever Ms. Maya just now, just concluded right away, said that, professional development doesn't have an age. And I can tell you proudly, I started teaching at the age of 32 when I decided that I should be a teacher. Yeah, I decided about professional development because I wanted to reach out to every student in my class, which I thought I failed. And as she correctly said, you need to feel, feel what you're doing. And I didn't feel, so I was a B.Ed by then. I took up Cambridge International, CIDTM. And 2 months into the course, all those words like constructivism made so much sense. I was seeing it live in my classroom. And that was a beautiful experience. And the word pedagogy actually made sense only then to me. Till then, it was just in the textbooks that I represented. So that was, and in fact, it's this journey of reaching beyond my classroom, which took me to curriculum development and now into principal. And that's what I look up to. I just wish I could, get to that learning to my teachers as well. Talking about my second module with Dr. Amber and Oasis International, I remember firstly stating to Dr. Amber, asking her the question, when am I going to complete the course? Believe me, now it's more than a year since I'm doing my course, and I'm in no hurry to complete, because every week the interaction that I have with fellow educationists or the mentors is rich enough. It's been so enriching, different perspectives from different people that we share our professional practices and what we learn from. And that's been a bigger learning than the course or the classroom itself. So would want to translate all that into the classroom. And I just definitely would like to, Dr. Amber, I totally, buy your idea of saying the professional capital in the teachers. I wish I could, get anywhere close to the eminent panelists here in, trying to build that professional capital in my group of teachers, which is what I seek. And
you will. you will.
Totally agree with Colonel also when he mentioned that we need to, have a mentor program for every teacher who's a part of it. Probably everyone knows how to, but continuously doing it, building that authenticity that Ms. Maya mentioned. I know that should be the key. And as Ms. Trista also pointed out, I think we should build that professional development culture. And that's a big thing. I would definitely seek up to all the panelists here to build that kind of professional development culture in my school as well. So hopefully I can do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Priya. That was really very, very well said. And thank you for being with us. Yeah, are there any other questions that we from the audience that we have to answer, Jeremy?
Yes, we have gotten some questions.
Okay.
Faisal Sultan asks, is online schooling possible with the available technologies? If yes, what may be the challenges?
Okay.
Excuse me, Amber, you're going to have to excuse. I have to leave. I've got another commitment. Thank you very much for allowing me to participate, and we'll catch up at some other time.
Bye, Ron. Okay, Ron. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for being with us. And I'm sorry it's really short, overshot the time. But
it's fine. It's fine. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya?
I think there's a bit of an audio lag.
Okay.
I just want to respond to Faisal.
Yeah. Yeah, go on, Maya. We can hear you. Maya, we can hear you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I wasn't able to hear. I'm so sorry. I interrupted when you were talking to Ron. No, I just want to respond to Faisal. I think the fact that, for last 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, schools have been functioning online tells you that schools can function online. But what are the challenges, of course, would be, having access to technology, particularly if you're, far-flung schools or remotely located schools, teachers having devices, students having devices, internet connectivity. I think those are challenges. Apart from that, also focusing on the other aspects of well-being, the physical well-being, the social emotional well-being, apart from the cognitive development of children. I think those are things that schools will now have to look at designing programs, designing learning opportunities and experiences that not just look at, theory and concepts and so on, but also look at physical, social, emotional development of children via online modes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thank you, Maya. That was well answered.
Really fast. There are about 3 more questions, and I'm just going to brush through them. We'll go one by one and have anyone from our panel take them. Rachana Heda asks, what steps can schools take for the next academic year to include points mentioned in the NEP?
Okay. Trista, you want to take that? Trista?
I think schools can first begin by looking at what they're teaching, how they're teaching it, and really re-evaluating if whether or not they're putting the child at the heart of the school system. And I think the directions NEP has laid out, if only we were to just sit back, reflect, and think about where we are, I think that would be the first step for schools to take, and really look inside, reflect on their practices. So some of the things could be, what are we teaching them? When are we teaching it? How can we make it better? Are we making children rote memory, or how are we assessing them? So really looking at each piece and taking it step by step. I think that's the best.
To a large extent, I would think that international schools and the progressive schools are doing everything that NEP wants, wants from government schools. So it's really the challenges with, like what Maya said initially. It's the government and the public schools ultimately that have to be, we have to work with them and make sure that we do the groundwork before we actually get the policy rolling. Otherwise, it's just going to be something that we are dreaming of and not really get us anywhere. So
Right.
yeah, Jeremy,
Right.
anything? Yeah.
Right. Right. So Padma Suresh asks, define mentoring vis-a-vis the institutional needs, goals, and the yardstick available to measure the mentoring skills. This one is directed to the Colonel.
Okay, Colonel.
So you've muted. I've asked to unmute.
I'm just typing out that answer. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, every educational institution goal is to retain teachers, because to get new teachers is a very difficult task. Now, happy teachers are actually happy students, as Maya says. With that in mind, one of the yardstick is how many teachers can you retain with very little motivation? In the end, teachers need to be motivated continuously, but some teachers need very little motivation to stick on into the organization. Now, those are the teachers who you need to target and find out who were the mentors of these teachers in the initial journey. What was one of the factors which made them stick around in the organization? And what keeps them happy and motivated? So when you work on these basic things, I think you get a sense of what the organization,
how well it's working, yes.
Yeah, how well the organization is working, what needs to be continuously done, what needs to be put in place if something is not working, And you have to have someone to answer to their fears, their needs, as a one-point contact.
I think a good feedback system would really help from the teachers. A good satisfaction survey would give us a good idea as to how far the mentoring is working and how many teachers actually benefited from it. We had a teacher who told us that she was a new teacher. In the middle of the year, she told us that I would have left but for the mentors that supported me and helped me with the curriculum, because Cambridge curriculum was very kind of difficult for her to actually follow through. But it was the mentoring that helped her stay back and want to continue with being a teacher, really, whether in our school or not. It was
so important, Amber. So
yes,
what you say is so important, that one teacher can make a lot of difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And perhaps these kind of feedbacks and testimonials will tell you whether your mentors are doing what they are supposed to do, and whether the program is taking shape. So yeah, Jeremy, we can take the last question.
we are that's it. That's all the questions that there is.
Great.
So
Great. So thank you so much, Maya. Ron has left, Colonel and Sister, for being with us and spending your valuable time and your valuable thoughts and sharing it with us.
Thanks so much.
We've got a lot to learn from each other, and
yes,
do more of these sessions, and I think that's the best way to learn from each other, right?
Yes.
So if we could put it in one phrase, how schools learn, I think it will be from each other, through each other, and with each other. So thank you so much, all of you, for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, and stay safe. Take care. Bye.
And with that, we come to the end of How Schools Learn, a webinar with different people from different aspects of the education sector in India and around the world as well. And I just want to take this time once again to thank everyone on our panel for everything they have said. And I learned many new things as well. And I'm looking forward to going back to school, whether it is on an online platform or physically as well, and taking a lot from here back into that too. So once again, thank you. And thank you to all of our attendees who was able to, I know we overshot our time and I do apologize for that, but I feel for many of us over here, it was well worth it. So thank you for that as well. And I just want to also thank those who joined in on Facebook, and for the viewers over there, for those who commented on our webinar on that platform as well. Just like our previous webinars, we will be uploading the entire thing on YouTube as well. So for those of you who missed it live and would like to have a look at it once again, you can find it there within a couple of hours. And all of our previous webinars are up on our YouTube channel as well. So do take the time to go look at it, subscribe to it, and click the notification bell if you want notifications whenever we upload new content, and that would be really nice. And with that, I would sign off as the host, Jeremy Solomon, and I will see you on the other side of the next webinar. Thank you very much.